Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies, and comrades, I hope you're doing well wherever you are. This is Kenyan Revolutionary or KR. Um, I'm glad to see you. I'm glad to see you. I have something to talk about today, very briefly, something brief. Like I say, I'll keep it succinct and pithy on this one because I am sure you have a lot of things to do. I just want to mention something, a couple of things that's happening in Kenyan politics. Um, Now, before I get started, as you can see, the topic is same pattern of deception and programming in Kenyan politics. I'll define what I mean by that. But before I get started, ladies and gentlemen, if you're new to this channel, if this is your first time just running through this channel, you're bumping into this channel, whether through X or through this YouTube Live. I talk about Kenyan politics and world politics as it relates to Kenya. So if you like that kind of content, go ahead and subscribe, share, like, comment, and do all that good stuff. And if you've already subscribed, don't hesitate. Hit the first order of business is to like the video. Now, when I talk about the same pattern of deception and programming in Kenyan politics, I'm just referring to how we, the people of Kenya, the majority who are consuming the news consumers, so to speak, information from the mainstream media, how we are being programmed and deceived by this political class and their minions and agents to accept what they're selling us. Now, this is what I mean, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies, and comrades. Every 5 years or so, or electioneering period or season, which never ends, it's always politics all the way. I mean, every day, no one gets to do anything in Kenya. We just talk about politics, and it's politics every day. Every day, someone is talking about their presidential bid, candidacy, aspirations, whatever the case is. It's always there every day. If it's not Matiangi today, tomorrow it's going to be Martha Karua. If it's not Martha Karua tomorrow, it's going to be Raila Odinga. If it's not Raila Odinga, it's going to be Ruto telling us how he's going to win the second term. If it's not him, it's going to be Kalonzo telling us. Now, that's what I'm talking about. Let me take you back. Haven't you noticed the pattern here? Let me just help you a little bit. This week alone, or this past week, and even the coming weeks, some political events are always scheduled, and they're scheduled with the full support of the mainstream media. Now, we understand that majority of this mainstream media in Kenya are actually owned, used, utilized by these same folks, okay? They own it, so they provide coverage about the political events in the day and they try to push this narrative to convince you that they are the main news, they are the it factor, they are what's popping, okay? What's going, that they're the hot issue of the day. Now, here's the pattern that I want you to kind of recognize. This past week, if not starting from last week, let's just start with this week, okay? We've had the first the interview, the sit down with not we, but you know, Gachagua sat down with, I think it was Inoro TV, Nuru TV, I don't know how to say it, one of the local channels from where he comes from, Mount Kenya region, sat down with him, and of course this whatever he said there was kind of reported widely in the media. With his sit-down interview, I mean, he was agitating the same thing that he always talks about. Ruto is a tribalist, Ruto is a criminal, Ruto is a liar, Ruto is this and this. We all know the deal, right? So after that, the next day or 2 days after that, it was the ODM event that happened in Machakos. What was it? ODM party, PPP. I don't know what they call it. Intra-party something meeting that happened in Machakos, I believe, somewhere in Ukambani. Okay, where Raila gave a speech, and in that speech, again, I highlight, take note of what he said. I want you to pay attention to this bit that he actually talked about when he mentioned that Kenya always works best when all the leaders are working together. Then he continued by saying that, it is better to have a civilian rule than have any other rule, maybe the military, or not have a coup d'etat, so to speak. Like, basically he was saying that anything, let me just rephrase it. Sorry, I'm getting it together. He's first stated, I want you to take note of this. He said that Kenya always operates best when all the leaders are working together. Okay, there's always peace, and he said it's better to have peace or elections through the ballot rather than any other means. And he gave an example of why he conceded defeat or agreed to enter into an agreement or a kind of arrangement with Kibaki, Uhuru, and now William Ruto, basically trying to justify the handshakes or the Nusumkati that he has always been negotiating for. And he said that it is better off, his main point, the overarching point that he was making is that Kenya works best when the leaders, so-called leaders, work together. Okay? So remember, the first pattern was I'm helping you so you don't lose your thought. You don't lose the point that I'm making. Gachagua in Inuru TV with his interview. Then a few days after that, it was ODM holding that meeting in Machakos, I believe, where Raila said it is better. And remember, Gachagua also in his speech the last weekend, he said that we are going to remove Ruto through the ballot. And he highlighted the ballot. Highlight the word ballot. Put it in capital letters, ballot. Going to vote him out. Then Raila echoed what Gachagua was saying in that meeting in Machakos, ODM meeting, by saying, again, reiterating what Gachagua had said, not in so many words, but he said, it's better off, having a transition of power through the ballot. And remember, he said a lot of things, saying, again, that Kenya works best when all the leaders work together, and it is better off to have a change through the ballot rather than have a military coup d'etat or any other coup, whether it's a political, popular revolution. He's not for it because it's chaotic, it's anarchy, it causes a lot of atrocities. So he'd rather have people go through the ballot. Same language as Gachagua, okay? But he was trying to convince us that it is better off. Kenya is better off, is peaceful when all the leaders, so-called leaders, all these tribal chieftains work together in tandem. Kenya is always in a better position, is prosperous, according to Raila Odinga. Then remember, Atwoli was also telling us that in that funeral, I don't know where it was, somewhere in Bungoma or whatever the case is, where he echoed the same thing, saying this: it is better off to have a peaceful nation than have, anarchy or whatever the case. Even if you unalala njaa, he was telling Gen Zs, hata kama mnalala njaa, but there's peace. You understand? So you see this pattern of the kind of reading from the same script, telling you the only way to actually agitate for change or bring about change that you desire, that you think needs to needs to be accomplished, is through the ballots. This is the underarching theme. And that's why Raila said it is better off for these leaders to work together. Kenya always is prosperous and is always at its best when all these tribal chieftains are working together. Now, remember I told you it started Gachagua last week, saying that, then Raila, or with his ODM thing in Machakos. Then, yesterday, we had who? We had, actually after ODM, it was Matiang'i, who was being interviewed by Debal through KTN or something, one of the mainstream media, where he was making his same thing, talking about the ballot and the changes he wants to make, and his, they're all presidential candidates, okay? Talking about the same thing, all right? Then after Matiang'i, So I told you, it was Gachagua in the mainstream media, then ODM folks with their party, whatever, in Machakos, then the interview, exclusive interview with Matiang'i and Dibal, okay? Then yesterday, it was Kalonzo Musyoka, who was sitting at JKIL on Citizen TV, saying the same thing, talking about one term, you know, they are working on, you know, this united opposition, trying to, you know, they are all running for president and it will be the first among equals. The same nonsense that, you know, the NASA code, all this silly stuff that they've been doing every electioneering period. Basically, that's what Kalonzo was doing. Now, this coming days, this coming week, this coming weekend, okay, we'll see Martha Karua is going to have her party, whatever, party something, all right, nomination or whatever the case is, all right? Then after that, on Monday, we have ODM again celebrating 20 years of existence, or whatever the case is, okay? On Monday, where it's going to take place in Mombasa. Again, you see Raila Odinga, you'll see Junet, the same faces that are always paraded on TV to convince you that, you know, these are the guys who are actually going to take over power or whatever the case is. Okay? Remember, Jimmy Wanjigi was also on the mix with the Safina party. So if you were to go back, we remember Jimmy Wanjigi was the one who started this, of this weekly news programming. Okay? Jimmy Wanjigi with his DCP saying nothing different, talking about the ballot, telling the youth you need to go take your, register to vote. Because again, the underlying message is this: register to vote so that we can vote Ruto out. Jimmy Wanjigi got all the media time. Then Gachagua, again with his interview in Inuru TV. After Gachagua, it was Matiang'i with Dibal. After Dibal, it was ODM Raila Odinga. After Raila Odinga, Kalonzo went to JKL, exclusive interview. After Kalonzo, this weekend is going to be Martha Karua and her party. Okay? Then on Monday, it's going to be ODM, again celebrating 20 years. Then after ODM, it's going to be, there's something else coming. Kalonzo again, they're going to wipe a party, whatever the new new party he has. They're going to, choose their, they are going to hold their nominations. What am I trying to say by pointing out this? This is a constant, okay, barrage, psychological, through the media, through imagery and information that is put out there to program you, convince you that these are the only options Kenyans have. Not only that these individuals that are being paraded through this mainstream media are the only option that can actually remove Ruto through ballot. Number two is that they are convincing you that not only that these folks are the only people who can run for the presidency or steer us to a better direction than Ruto, they are also pushing the same narrative that the only way to take out Ruto is through the ballot. Do you see what is happening? I will repeat again for the people at the back to get it. The programming and the deception that is going on here is this. With the constant news, exclusive interview, mainstream media pushing these non-personalities who have been embroiled in the worst corruption cases in Kenya, they're being paraded before us. We're constantly having a barrage of information, imagery of the Matiangis, Raila, Karua, Musyoka, Gachagua, Ruto, to convince the Kenyan public that these are the only options as far as the better option that we might choose for a better Kenya. And they're also not only telling us that these are the only individuals, you know, and throw in Wanjigi in there. Not only are they trying to convince us that these are the only people who can also be president besides Ruto, or the people who are going to take out Ruto, they are also trying to convince us that the only way to have a peaceful transition of power democratically is only through elections, ballot box, ballot papers, voting, universal suffrage. That is what they're trying to convince us. That's why they're speaking in one language, whether they're for Ruto, pro-Ruto, or against Ruto. They're telling you the only way we are going to defeat Ruto, and we are going to defeat Ruto through voting him out. So they're telling you to go and register and vote, knowing very well that the elections is already predetermined. The IBC is a rigged process. Should I continue? I tell you, of all these people, whether it's Jimmy Wanjigi, Martha Karua, Raila Odinga, Musyoka, Matiangi, Eugene Wamalwa, Natembea, none of them is talking about a popular revolution. They're all talking about going to the voting Ruto out in 2027. Why are they doing this? You have to pay attention to what they're saying. That's why I go back to the quote that I gave from Raila Odinga when he said, Kenya always works best when all the leaders are working together, all the so-called tribal chieftains, the very people I've just mentioned. Jimmy Wanjigi, Martha Karua, Raila Odinga, Fred Matiangi, Kalonzo Musyoka, Eugene Wamalwa, same faces. Raila is convincing us that Kenya is always at its best when all these folks are working together. And they're all speaking the same language, telling us that let's go to 2027 elections. The only way to take out Ruto is through the ballot. Jimmy Wanjigi, when he was launching his party, DCP, celebrating I don't know how many years of existence, he said the same thing. He said, let's take the Ninio, register and vote. We go to the ballot. Even Paul Mwite hinted at, came close to saying the same, what I'm saying, but never got there. Paul Mwite said, ati tutalinda kura. Because he understands. He highlighted the mischief in this. And he highlighted the fact that the presidential election shall be determined at the polling station. But he says, so we shall linda kura, the polling station. But lindering kura is not enough because it can still be manipulated not at the presidential poll station, but at Bomas, because the person to declare the presidential winner after those Ninio is determined there, the commissioner has to go and read it. Na niliwapatia example, at the polling station might say that Ruto ameshindwa at the polling station, but the commissioner, who is the person mandated to announce the winner of the presidential election, can come to Bomas and say there was problem in that polling station and we have done the correction, and actually Ruto won in that polling station. You see the mischief in this? But what I'm trying to say is this. This is the same pattern of deception and programming of Kenyans to make them think that these people that are being paraded every week, they're always coming with something. Whether it's their sorry party, political parties celebrating 18 years of existence or 20 or whatever the case is, whether it's them having an exclusive one-on-one interview with Sam Gatuku, whatever the case is, or Okwara, or whoever, JKL, it's designed to constantly remind you. Remember what Hitler said: if you repeat a lie so many times, you'll start seeing it as the truth. So the more these people are making themselves visible and pushing this imagery that they have support, that they're the main option, and the only way to take out Ruto is through the ballot, through the electoral process, which is already manipulated, given the personnel that have been handpicked by Ruto and Raila. People in their conscious, subconsciously or consciously, will believe that it is now true. That's why when you see this majority of these so-called political pundits, they talk about, oh, Jimmy Wanjigi shall bring 3% of this vote, community vote. Sijui Karua shall bring this percentage of vote. Raila shall bring this percentage of vote. Sijui Gachagua will bring this percentage of vote. Because they're basically reaffirming, reinforcing the narrative that is being pushed into the Kenyan people's conscious, the unsuspecting people of Kenya, to believe that these folks are the only people who are qualified to run for presidency, to run the state, the republic called Kenya. And the reason why these people are always Mwakanenda Mwakarudi running for this position is for the very reason Raila Odinga has said. Camouflage the reason why, the real reason why. When he mentioned, he said that Kenya has always been at its best when the leaders are working together. What did he mean? When the leaders are apportioned positions within the statecraft. Which makes sense why Raila would say, who told you that ODM will not be running for president in 2027? Or will be supporting Ruto? What is Raila's reason for doing that? Read between the lines. It's not complicated. Raila will pretend that he's not getting along with Ruto come 2027 for two main reasons. Number one, Raila understands that Ruto is unpopular. So he will try to endear himself with the people by pretending that all of a sudden he has seen the light. He will come to you pretending that I was only in a working relationship with Ruto and I felt that the conditions were unattainable. I could not go on in this broad base because Ruto was not heeding to my advice. In real sense, it won't be a real political divorce. It will be to create division. You might be asking me why. Remember, Raila has to be on the opposition in order to negotiate for power. Should I repeat that? Raila must be at odds against the ruling party or the serikal of the day in order to later negotiate for power. Raila cannot go to the election in 2027 with his name as deputizing Ruto's Ninio or supporting Ruto, knowing very well that Ruto is unpopular and he knows that Ruto is going to rig this election. He knows that. Remember, he's the one who actually helped Ruto, and he made those noise walienda maandamano, watu wakaua, committed atrocities, so that they can push this illegal bill that they made law, the Electoral Act, which they had say in who gets to be the commissioners of the IEBC. So Raila understands that these elections are going to be rigged, but he cannot be part of this rigging, because if he stays and supports Ruto, him along with his ODM, he will be part of the people accused of rigging. And if they are defeated, he'll have no leg to stand. Because, listen, let me explain something to you. Let me explain it very quickly and very shortly. If Raila supports Ruto in 2027, listen to me very quickly. He will be going to an election supporting an unpopular candidate that he understands is going to rig the elections. So in the event Raila is defeated with Ruto, Raila will not have the majority of the support to call upon to go to maandamano to cause enough strife, chaos, to negotiate for power. Raila Odinga in 2022, when he lost election to Ruto, he tried the maandamano on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it was not working. It was not working. Ruto was not moving. He had to reach out to who? Maina Njenga. Through Uhuru Kenyatta. Using Uhuru's money. So that they can bring chaos in Mombasa, in some parts of Nairobi, Kiambu County, and every other, so that the maandamano can look like it's a big maandamano, the atrocities. Because what they were doing was simply causing chaos. They knew they lost elections, but they wanted to create the perception that their election has been stolen. They kept on giving us different figures, but they were beaten fair and square. Majority of Kenyan people voted for Ruto. So when Raila called Mandamano, it was not successful. So he had to reach out to Maina Njenga and Uhuru Kenyatta to get some Mount Kenya youth through the Mungiki to cause as much atrocities in Nairobi and use the Haman Manyoras to convince us that this country can go to the dogs. We can end up like Rwanda. So it is better for us to have this NADCO. And NADCO is another way of saying that we need Raila in government. So you see, Raila himself with ODM supporters were not enough to cause enough chaos to force Ruto's hand to agree or acquiesce to his demands of getting into government. If you look historically, Raila was able to succeed to get into government of national unity because he had the majority of the will of the people when his election was stolen. But in 2022, he did not enjoy that support. Majority of people were not with him. He was calling Mandamano, and Mandamano was not being effective. No one was buying. No one was boarding. Because they knew Raila was being a con man. Because they didn't have the will of the people. Popular support. People knew he had lost. So he had to reach out to Maina Njenga to tap into the youths in Mount Kenya to help him, to cause chaos in Nairobi. That's why you are seeing those videos of the Mungiki and the Gaucho drinking blood in Nairobi, trying to intimidate people. And they were using the mouthpieces like Nani, Haman Manyora to convince, put fear into Kenyans that Muspo accepting Nadiko, Kenya shall become like Rwanda, and there shall be bloodshed. Remember? So the same thing Raila going into this 2027 elections, he has to move away from Ruto first to join the opposition so that he can have the majority of the support, be part of the people's will, be in line with people's will, because majority of Kenyans want Ruto out, right? So, when election comes, 2027, whether it's Raila Odinga running for presidency, or whether it's Raila Odinga being part of the coalition in the opposition, he shall not be standing with Ruto, because he knows him along with Ruto has appointed commissioners that are going to rig this election for Ruto. And he knows eventually he will get back with Ruto in a coalition. But he has to fool the people that he's with them. He's fighting for them. And you'll see, there'll be a great propaganda narrative. Once Raila divorces from Ruto, he'll say, hey, Baba is finally in his senses. Don't even be surprised if Raila Odinga join hands with Wakina Nani, Matiangi and Gachagua. Then we shall go to elections. Then when election happens, this Ruto shall be rigged. And once the Ruto is rigged, chaos shall ensue. And after the chaos shall ensue, there shall be a change. That chaos will be used to change the constitution or create an Mongred government of national unity, where all these people shall be accommodated. That's why they're all fighting to run for president. They're all fighting to create or come up with a political party. It is not necessarily to win the elections. It is to sit at the high table come the next dispensation, after the chaos that will ensue once Ruto rigs the election. And you will see, Raila will be the first one to sit with Ruto after the chaos in 2027. And we shall be told, it is better we negotiate for peace than the chaos that is happening in the country. Kiambu County, Mount Kenya, Nairobi, itakuwa ni maandamano. That is the Nino here. Kalonzo Musyoka knows he's not going to be president. Martha Karua knows he's not going to be president. Jimmy Wanjigi knows he's not going to be president. Matiang'i knows he's not going to be president. Raila Odinga doesn't want to be the president. Eugene Wamalwa doesn't want to be the president, cannot. They know it. They're all working together. In public, they'll tell you, talk ill about Ruto and his administration. But if you look deeply for anyone who wants a real fundamental change in Kenya, you cannot tell the Kenyan people to go to the ballot to vote Ruto out, because the electoral process itself is rigged, manipulated, compromised. Just listen to their speech. When Gachagua was in that church, the first thing he said, the best way to remove Ruto is through the ballot. That indicated to me that Gachagua ni mchezo is still with Ruto. Matiang'i, say the same thing, through the ballot. Jimmy Wanjigi, through the ballot. Martha Karua, through the ballot. Boniface Mwangi, through the ballot. Raila Odinga, through the ballot. Natembea, through the ballot. Wamalwa, through the ballot. No one stood up and said, the people, oh Shaba, the people can actually go to the streets and demand that Ruto resign, and the whole cabinet and the whole legislative body. Like Nepal. Then Gen Zs went to the streets. They voted in an interim government that is going to stay in place for 6 months in preparation for the next general election. The transition of power has been done democratically by the people exercising their power directly. It's in the process of Nepal, and Nepal is peaceful. Security has been restored. Military is still in the Nino barracks after a popular revolution by the Gen Zs. Successful one. The corrupt politician wamekimbia wote, including the prime minister or the president, whatever they got there. So let no one convince you that these people who are coming up with their own political parties and telling us about their political parties every day in mainstream media in Kenya are the only option. They are not. In fact, these people are working together with Ruto to maintain the status quo. But they come with language tailored to woo the Gen Zs. Oh, we shall vote sheriffs, new sheriffs. Oh, we are looking at our debt. Kalonzo is coming up with I don't know what. Matiang'i, confused as always. Gachagua talking about Mlima endlessly with no vision. Natembea. Eugene Wamalwa. But they're all telling you the same. Let's go to the ballot. because the ballot is the only way that will guarantee them to maintain power within the corrupt political oligarchy of Kenya. That is the way they guarantee they are going to stay watakuwa wanaitwa mheshimiwa. So they have to mention the ballot. That is the only way they will remain being called mheshimiwa. Because if we have a people's revolutionary movement like the one in Nepal, all these people will not be called mheshimiwa anymore. All the money that they have been stealing, they shall pay for it. So you see the same pattern of deception and programming in politics in Kenya. Constant media appearances, 2-hour exclusive interviews, saying a bunch of nothing. Oh, Ruto sends people in Haiti. Oh, Ruto did this. Oh, Ruto is corrupt. Oh, there's no security. Oh, there's Somalis. Oh, there's nothing of substance. And at the end of it, they tell you elections, it will be one term. Go to elections and renew. An electoral process that has already been manipulated, bought, sold, handpicked, and operationalized by William Samoei Ruto and Raila Odinga. But they're still staring at you in the eye, telling you, let's go to elections. Meanwhile, they're creating their nonsensical manifesto, convincing you about what their dream, their delusions of becoming the president of Kenya. Think. None of them have stood up and said the people can exercise their power directly. And use Nepal as an example. Nepal is peaceful today. I've just talked to my friend. It's a couple, old couple that are running a business. I usually go to their business shop every day. They just told me that they have an interim government that is going to stay in place for 6 months. And after that, they're preparing for elections. I told you about that in a few videos back when I told you the Gen Zs went back in the streets and they cleaned up the streets and they asked anyone who have stolen anything to bring it back. And they did that. Reconciliation. We're still entertaining, I don't know, 20 years of ODM, 18 years of Safina, I don't know, DCP, UDA. Choreographed nonsense designed to deceive you and program you into believing that these are the only options we have in Kenya. The only option we have in Kenya for a peaceful transitional transition to power is the people themselves going to the streets and demanding that all these public representatives, starting from Ruto, the whole executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch, to resign, and we shall have interim government for 6 months, leading up to the next elections. That's the only way. That's the only way. I've highlighted the theme, the pattern of deception and programming that is happening in Kenya. And I gave you, in my previous video, the layers of this deception and programming. Through the activists, those clowns that were in Uhuru Park talking about free Palestinian. How about free Congo? How about free Sudan? Congo has lost more lives than the Jews that died in Germany during Hitler, the Holocaust. Congo has lost more people through the hands of these Western governments than the people who died in Gaza and Palestine. So don't talk to me about Palestine. What about Congo? What about Sudan, which is next to Kenya? But you're there with the Palestinian flag, unaenda Uhuru Park, unafikiri unafanya kazi nzuri. Charity begins at home. You cannot claim that you want free Palestine while Congo is not free. Your DNA is more closer to the people of Congo than the people of Palestine. So I don't want to hear it. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends and comrades, my name is Kenyan Revolutionary. I leave it here. You think about the deception and the same pattern of deceit, deception, and programming in Kenyan politics through these conmen and conwomen that masquerade, pretend as leaders of Kenya. My name is Kenyan Revolutionary. I'll see you next time. Peace and blessings. I'm out.